are back with William. I'm sure you are as fascinated with this as I am. Horrible as it is, I think there are lots of lessons in this for all of us. And I cannot wait to continue with segment 2. William, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming here and bearing your personal life with us. I'm sure you've done many interviews before.
Yeah, I've done a few.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's my pleasure. And like I said at the beginning of this, our silence is their greatest weapon. Mm-hmm. And really, I think when part of what I'm trying to do and everything I'm doing is giving survivors a reason to come forward by changing the laws and them enabling them to have their voice. Once you come out, the truth sets you free. You really can't be touched by it anymore. But people do need a reason to come forward.
One of the most empowering women I know that I truly admire and look up to is a spiritual teacher, and her name is Joyce Myers. And the reason I love her so much is because I should add respect, is because she was abused by her father, she says, over 200 times before she was 17. And she stands in front of millions of people all over the world, and she is very graphic. I mean, she doesn't tell you step by step what happened, but she doesn't try to hide it. She doesn't make a secret of it, and she has helped many people. And I believe when these things happen, the best gift you can give to others is by not hiding it and trying to help them. And when you're being brave and bold like you are, and like she is, and others like you are, you're really helping a lot more people than you realize, especially when you have a medium such as television to get the word out. So
I'm grateful to be able to do it.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that you've allowed my show to tell your story as well. So we've covered segment 1, which you talked about the incident. Mm-hmm. And I thought it would be good in this segment to talk briefly about your court trial and why you think you were exonerated. And then tell us about your foundation, but we'll start with your court case.
Okay. After the incident went down, ironically, 3 days later, the police are at my door. I was, I don't know, there's just a lot of irony around it, I've been trying for 15 years to get charges brought against this guy after living with the abuse for 20 years at that point. Yeah. So a total of 35 years. I'm like, really? 3 days, you guys are here? At the time, I wasn't really sure what had happened. I know that I was hitting him pretty hard, and like in the base of the skull, and so I just thought that there's a possibility he might have died. And the police were outside the door, and I wasn't going out there.
Were you petrified?
No, I mean, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't petrified, but I was thinking, wow, you know what? I need a really good attorney. And so I called up Mark Garagos of Garagos and Garagos, yeah. And he's a big-time attorney, representing a lot of people. And fortunately, the receptionist, like they have typically like someone calls a receptionist, and then if they think you might be a case they want, they kind of put you through the junior staff and whatever. But I just said, the police are at my door. I think I may have possibly killed this priest who molested me, and I need help. And she forced the call through to Pat Harris, who worked in that office, who I spoke with. He looked on the internet for 2 minutes and just said, okay, we're going to help you out. And
I'm getting chills while you're saying that. I don't know why.
Yeah, they were staking me out, so I had to sort of sneak out of my house. And they flew me down to LA. And the best thing that ever could have happened to me was working with these guys. I mean, but
you mean the attorney?
The attorneys. Yeah. I mean, Pat Harris and Mark Garagos, and then Paul Monis was brought in a little bit later because he's sort of a specialist who deals with people who have attacked their abusers, or killed their abusers or whatnot. But I had a great legal team, and I'm sure that the DA's office in San Jose was like, really. And one interesting thing also was we negotiated a surrender once I got the attorney, and they didn't do anything for 6 months. I think they were just hoping it would just go away. But I know that in this litigious society that we're in, we could force the issue, which I did. I told the attorneys, I'm like, I don't want this to go away. I want to make sure that they arrest me and we go to trial and do this.
Why didn't you want it to go away?
Because I wanted to say what needed to be said. And I said, so I know we can force their hand because, you know, they don't want to be sued if I go and do something else or whatnot. And so we were able to do that. And once we were also looking at possibly doing another civil suit. And once they got wind of that, 2 days after that, they called me in and I surrendered. I was in jail for half a day and they got me out. And then I met with my attorneys and I told them right from the very beginning, I'm like, I do not want a plea deal. There's nothing I'm going to settle here. I'm absolutely going to go on stand. I'll take responsibility for what I've done, unlike Father Jerry in the Catholic Church. But I'm going to say what needs to be said, and I'm going to have my day in court, and I don't care if I have to go to jail. And I could have done up to 4 years in prison. They thought maybe I'd do 2 the most, maybe 1.5 to 2. So going into this thing, I was pretty calm because I wasn't attached to the outcome. You know, I prepared my family. You know, I told my parents, I'm like, I am absolutely, unequivocally going to jail. You need to understand this. So we got in there and everything, I remember on the second day, well, at first they said I couldn't talk about the molestation at all. So we're like, well, how can we build a defense if I can't mention why I went down there and did what I did?
Yeah, like you just out of the blue just decided to go beat this guy up?
Exactly. So the judge said, well, we argued, well, we should be able to call some witnesses to attest to his credibility. And so I had 3 witnesses, 2 other victims that I had found who were related to the camping group where this happened, and then one of them was the niece of Father Jerry. And he had abused all of his brother's kids and whatever, but so they were ready.
This guy is still living in society? I mean, seriously, he's still out there.
He's living down in Sacred Heart Jesuit Retreat in Los Gatos, and you know, I'm exploring a lot of different things around these issues. I mean, one thing I'm looking at, working to do a piece on these thousands of these retreats that they move these priests around, and looking at legal options for the municipalities. I mean, they should be able to say, look, we don't want these guys in our community. You brought them in, you didn't tell us. And the response from the church is, well, nobody's been convicted because the statute of limitations has expired. So there's no record, but these people have been named in many cases. And I think there's a way that these municipalities can bring lawsuits. And so I'm exploring different stuff like that.
Okay.
But getting back to the trial, they said, okay, you can talk about the molestation very generically. Like I could say I was molested. I couldn't talk about any details or whatnot. And in the second day of the trial, you know, I'm sure people read about it, but if you were in the courtroom, it was like the DA gets up, suborns perjury, and says, you know, we know he's a liar, and we know he's going to lie when we put him on the stand, and they put him on the stand, and he lied. And all of a sudden, his attorney's standing with my attorneys, arguing with the DA and the judge. His attorney's saying, we're taking the fifth. We're not talking about anything anymore. My attorneys are saying, well, now if he can't face his accuser, he doesn't have a Sixth Right Amendment, so he should have a mistrial, but they refused the mistrial. But the result of Father Jerry taking the fifth was that the jury was instructed to ignore everything that had to do with him in the trial, which also meant I could no longer call any witnesses. So I had nothing.
Why does it seem like the law is out there to protect these sick people? I don't get it. I don't understand the law, but...
I mean, it should be fair for everyone. He had the right to take the fifth in that situation and whatnot. I mean, this is where we'll get into talk about the statutes and limitations. Those, you know, there's certain things within the system that, I'll talk about that a little bit more, but you know, all of a sudden I'm in a situation where I have no one but me. And it came down to me pretty much in the last day of the trial on the stand, and you know, the DA's like, you went down there, you premeditated it, you put on gloves, you thought about it for years, you lied and made a story and went in there, you beat this guy up and did it. And I just turned to the jury, I'm like, I'm not going to insult your intelligence, I did this, you know, but I had my reasons. And, you know, I kind of stated my case, explained what happened. And I said, and I'm prepared to face justice for what I've done. But I wanted to get this out in the public. I wanted to expose Jerold Lindner, and I wanted to expose the Catholic Church and the Sacred Heart Jesuit Center, and give people a reason to come forward and some inspiration, you know. And the end result was they found me not guilty through jury nullification. And jury nullification is basically, it's an interesting situation because it's not a rule of law, but it's a right that a jury has that we've had since the inception of our system in this country. But it's also in violation of your oath as a juror.
Okay.
So if there wasn't, and a defense attorney can't say you can nullify this either. So unless someone on your jury really knows it, it would never happen. And it rarely happens. It's less than 1% of the time. But long story short, they found me not guilty, and I didn't expect that at all. You know, I was definitely resigned to going to jail.
God is not a policeman. I always say that.
Was that? God is not a policeman?
God is not a policeman. I am so happy that you were exonerated, because to me, going to jail would really have been, I mean, I'm just another mortal, but you would be looking at this like, what was the purpose of my life? Because you were living in a jail after this happened to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've already been
served
suffering.
your time. Yeah.
I mean, if I had gone to jail, you know, it's easy for me to sit here and say I knew I was going to jail. You know, probably after a month in there, I would have been climbing the walls, going, this sucks. But I did what I felt was the right thing to do, and I never planned any of this. But as things evolved, you know, I started to realize there's an opportunity here for people to get what I got. You know, I tell people not to do what I did. I was very lucky, and this is why.
I think you were blessed.
Whatever you want to call it. And, you know, this is taking the law in your own hands is not the way to do it. But before the trial, I posed these questions. You know, I'm like, where does my obligation to protect children supersede his rights? You know, I mean, It's almost like I'm complicit in the crime. It's like I know this guy's a molester. I know he's molested other children, and he's free to molest more children. Somebody's got to do something. So in the face of a system that fails to protect children, I took matters into my own hands, and what happened. I got lucky. I don't want people to go out and do what I did. Although I do recognize, I mean, I can tell you right now, if I had children, or if I was anybody out there with children, you know, if the law's not getting it done, I'll get it done, whatever the consequence. And I think that the jury's verdict really kind of puts the trial on system and exposed this gap that needs to be closed. And really now I think the system's liable. You know, I mean, essentially, if somebody does do what I did, they can come and cite my case. And this is something that needs to be addressed by the system, and we're working to change that. And like I said before, from this situation, I found my voice, I became empowered, and I started to be able to take my life back in a way that I couldn't before.
And I'm happy that has happened. So going forward, you're living a new life in terms of that's been dealt with. It's kind of, it will never go away, but you're in a healthier place than you were when it first happened. So now, what are your plans, and how are you using this to help others?
I'm taking my experience and the things that I learned from that and putting them into the philosophy behind the organization RISE.
What does RISE stand for?
Roots for Individual and Social Empowerment. And that is an advocacy organization. Basically, we're trying to change the system that allows pedophiles and the institutions that harbor them to keep getting away with this. And part of the problem is basically it's politics, you know, and it favors those who bring the greatest resources and influence to bear, like these institutions. So you have institutions that are well-funded that are not protecting children from predators in their ranks, who are lobbying, using powerful lobbyists to lobby our legislature, and the legislature is unwilling or unable to get it done, and children aren't being protected. So my whole philosophy is taking this back to the people and bringing ballot measure and letting the people decide. You've seen a recent development. A lot of people didn't hear about it. It was passed just before the end of the year very quietly, but now the legislature has injected themselves into the ballot measure process. So the ballot measure process was the most pure form of democratic resolve that we could exercise. Now they're injecting themselves into the process. They're doing it because you're seeing a trend where people are starting to say, you know what, we have a lame duck Congress, people aren't getting it done in politics, we're going to get it done ourselves. So you're seeing the legislature's power erode, and this is why they're injecting themselves into the process. So in California, 25%, once 25% of the signatures for the ballot measures are collected or whatnot, they come in and there's a panel of legislators, and there's a panel of lay people from the public who get to chime in. The thing about it is it gives my opposition constructive notice months before I can even get out and start raising funds. Mm-hmm. So they can mount a campaign against me, and so it's.
But why would anybody want to mount a campaign against something that would protect children?
Every single organization that engages our children will be against this. So every public and private institution that's educational.
It's to protect them.
Because they have children and they don't have measures in place to protect children. They don't have programs. They have a history and a culture of abuse. They know they have problems. They know there's going to be a huge expense for them, and they're afraid. And the insurance companies, to put it in perspective, I mean, these insurance companies for the church have paid billions.
I've heard.
The premiums make them more money than the payouts. That's why they stay in the business. There's always going to be a market. They're always going to serve it. By bringing this ballot measure and having no retroactive consequence, it's basically clearing the past and putting measures in place now and in the future, because children are at risk today. So those who've come before, if you're outside of the statutes of limitations, you're out of luck. If you're within the current statutes of limitations, your case would remain in that. If you're injured after the new law, there will be no statute of limitations. I'm doing it this way because I want the greatest chance for success, and I want to eliminate the opposition's arguments. So it will cost taxpayers nothing. It will not overcrowd prisons. It will not be an overdue burden on the system. It will not be a field day for the attorneys. And also this law will give teeth to existing law like Megan's Law and Jessica's Law, sex trafficking laws, mandatory reporting laws. And the law will protect children now and in the future, like prepubescent children from pedophiles, and then teenage children under 18, or all children under 18, from child pornography and sex trafficking.
So how can my viewers help this? Anybody watching this, how can they help this foundation?
Well, right now where we are with the process of the ballot measure, it's something that I have to bring personally. My organization RISE cannot bring it. That's the law. So we're drafting the measure's been drafted. It's going through the process of approval. Then we need title and summary. So maybe I could be on your show another time and we can talk about what people can do specifically.
Yeah, anything I can do to help.
But in the meantime, what people can do is visit the website. We're at RISE.
Would you like to tell them what the website is?
Yeah, it's riseaboveabuse.org.
Okay.
And you can go to that website. You can share your story, read stories of other victims. You can learn a lot about what's going on with the ballot measure. You can learn a lot about different subjects associated with this. And we operate on donations. I basically have spent my money and some donations that have come in, and I need to be writing grants. There's a lot to do. I mean, I'm essentially me and one other person who volunteers.
When did you start this foundation?
About 2.5 years ago.
Okay. And how large is it now?
It's 2 of us. But it takes a village, but I don't need to have more than that. It's like I'm running what I'm running, and I have a volunteer who helps me. And there's many people peripherally that I engage to help me accomplish the tasks that I need to accomplish. But I'd love to grow this into an organization that would go worldwide someday.
Well, I think that you need publicity, because there's so many abused children everywhere. I mean, I'm sure that a large percentage of children have been taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they're looking for resources such as this that can help. So I think one of the things you can do is start getting the word out there.
Absolutely.
And you may get a lot more people on board sooner than you think.
And there's a lot of projects, that we're working on. I want to bring the ballot measure. I want to start in California and then do it in all 50 states. I'm writing a book. The book's basically should be coming out next year. I really want people to understand what it's like to live with this situation or whatnot. Also producing a documentary that's sort of using my story as a vehicle to explore peripheral issues and possible solutions, in the broader spectrum around this, and also follow me through the process of bringing the ballot initiative.
So what is the worst thing that, apart from the actual incident, that you would say has happened as a result of this? And then what do you say is the best thing? Because I really always look at my life personally when things happen, I try to see the good in it, and I try to identify what is not good about it to protect myself for the future and to share with those that I can help with it.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say is the absolute worst part of all of this to date, and what is the best? Or what is good?
It's tough to pick like a worst part, because I sort of look at things that are negative as opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
So I really think that I don't really think there's a worst part. I think there's good parts, but there's been challenges that are revealed. I mean, this is something that people don't want to deal with. They just don't want it in their headspace. My job with everything I'm doing is to try to make this as clear and concise as possible, a very cut and dry line, so people understand exactly what they can do to make a difference.
Right.
And really it comes down to them just, all you have to know is that it's wrong for adults to sexually abuse children. Donate some money to the cause and cast your vote, and you can get more involved if you want to be. But my job is to try to make that easy, and there's a challenge for making something that's palpable, that people can tolerate, that doesn't put them over the edge, but can also get them engaged. Everybody gets upset. Everybody says, this is an outrage. Someone should do something, and then they take that stand there. And I don't want people standing there. This is a reality. Let's just not get emotional about it. I mean, the motto of my organization, is common sense, good business. This isn't about vengeance. It's not even about justice. This is about getting it done, fixing this problem, and moving forward. And that's what I want people. I want people to be in that mindset. I want them to be like, yes, this is terrible. We all know it, but what are we going to do about it? And that's what I think I'm doing that's different from most people. I actually have a plan to come through this. And so that's what I need to do. I need to back up what I'm telling. When I'm trying to get people to engage the issue and think about it, I need to back it up with a plan through it so that they feel like there's going to be resolution.
Can you imagine the horrible prison people, pedophiles, must live in?
Yeah, I mean,
there's no way that at some point they don't sit down and look in the mirror and go, I'm a horrible person. I mean, if they don't, it means they've got no conscience. That really makes them dangerous.
I personally believe that the majority of these people are just born this way.
Some of them have actually been victims too.
Some have been victims, and maybe not necessarily of sexual abuse, but other types of abuse. I think most people are not happy this way, pedophiles. And I think if you're born that way, they would be the same thing as being born gay and being told that you can't express yourself. I can have some empathy there, but the reality is this society doesn't tolerate adults having sex with children. And I think I mentioned before, I do believe there's a spectrum. I think that possibly some of these people can be managed, with something like AA for alcoholics, something for pedophiles, and that's something else that we've been exploring.
But they have to want to.
They have to want.
Some of them, because they can get away with it, they enjoy that lifestyle because for them it's empowering. It's a form of power.
Yeah, I think a program like that has to, involve voluntary participation. Mm-hmm. I think anonymity has to be respected. Anonymity has to be respected for these people to get them involved. But I do think the program would involve them going to the police and saying, look, this is who I am. And I think declaring that and taking responsibility for it is a way that some of these people could manage it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're down to our last 5 minutes. What haven't we covered that you want people to know about?
I think just in general, I'd like people to understand that, this is an issue that's always going to be with us. There are always going to be pedophiles, but people need to be honest with themselves that A, that there is a problem, and that B, there's a way through it, and be willing to do what it takes to get through it, and understand that some of that may not be easy for some people. It may be in conflict with their religious views or their personal views or family situation or whatnot, but in the interest of protecting your children and other children in the future and other people's children, whether you have them or not, we have an obligation to protect those who can't protect themselves. And there's a way to get this done. And by passing a ballot measure that repeals the statutes of limitations on civil and criminal sex crimes, it's going to put pedophiles on notice that they're never free from being prosecuted. And it's going to put these institutions on notice that they'll never be safe from liability or prosecution, you know. And I think it'll make a big difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching the Jennylyn Show. If you're someone who has been abused and you are told if you talk about it that you're going to be killed or your family is going to be killed, it's a lie. There are places and people who can protect you. Do not do what William did and live with this secret for too long. Go get help. There's help everywhere. It's got to be someone you trust. And at the very worst, you can trust the police, I hope.
I think you can. I think you can in most cases, and you know, my email and I think my phone number as well are on the website. I mean, if you really need
Would
to
you
reach out,
please
I'm
say
here
your
for
email
you.
and your phone number?
My email is will with 2 L's at riseaboveabuse.org.
So if you are afraid to call the police or tell your mom or somebody else, call William, because he is someone who will empathize and help you. And nobody should allow anybody to dictate the outcome of your life. So if anyone has taken advantage of you, seek help and get yourself taken care of before it's too late. And again, William, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
For bearing
Really
your
appreciate
soul
it.
on this sofa with me.
It's my pleasure.
And sharing your story. And I would love to help your organization in any way that I can. If it's just through this medium, please feel free to reach out. And thank you for watching the Jennylyn Show. I'm very happy to be back.
Say just one more thing.
Yeah.
There are over 40 million survivors of this in the United States, and what I'm trying to do is give people a reason to come forward. And when you do come forward, the truth will set you free. And there's truly an army of us that can transform this issue and transform other social issues as well. So don't be afraid to come forward. Just come and let it be.
Don't live in the prison of abuse. Thank you.